Hello, I'm Richard Wilkinson. I'm a composer for video games mostly, but also TV, films and other stuff. And a few weeks ago, I decided I'm going to make an album. Now, I didn't want to use any virtual keyboard instruments, fake orchestral stuff or synths or anything like that. So I decided I wanted to use just piano and cornet. And then apart from that, I was going to use a mixture of two things. One was found sound, so I recorded seagulls, antibacterial spray, toilet roll, loads of other stuff like that, and turned those into instruments. And then the second thing is that I asked people to send me in recordings of single notes. For 4 of the tracks on the album, I put up some sheet music for the really early demos, so if people actually wanted to get the chords in front of them and play along with what I'd written at that point, they could. And a few people did that, sent some amazing stuff over on guitar and saxophone and bass. So I had these mixtures of individual notes and musicians playing different parts, combined all of that stuff with the found sounds into an album. So yeah, let's get into the tracks. The working title for this was The Virus, but I thought it was a bit too trite and on the nose. But I saw a really evocative description of viruses from a virologist called Edward Rybicki, who said, "Viruses are at the edge of life," and I thought that was a really good title. It's quite poetic. Aesthetically, conceptually, it's by far the darkest track on the album. It's not very musical, it's not very melodic, it's got some quite nasty sounds in it. So that's not a horse, that's birdsong, but really, really pitched down and slowed down. This is Sainsbury's supermarket. This was a staff announcement. Okay, so all of these sounds here are derived from recordings I made of seagulls, from basses to pad sounds. Some of those, the high ones, kind of the granular ones sound more like seagulls, but that bass, yeah, as you can probably tell from the lovely custom icon that I made, is a tin of kidney beans. They're not actually in chili sauce, but that's the first image I could find. Matt Bowdler, aka The Unfinished, synth sound design genius, he sent me this really gnarly, complex, wonderful synth sound, which I turned into a few different things, one of which was this bass. Love it. And then below that there's a lead sound that I made from a frankly ridiculous kazoo sound that Daniel Pemberton sent me. Thank you, Dan. So I turned that into a few things as well, some kind of choppy short plucks, but also this sweeping lead. Track 2, Exponential Growth. I really like this one. Here's my initial idea for the track. So I sort of expected this one was going to be more of a mechanical sounding systems piece with all these interlocking staccato notes and stuff. And I got these parts through, a saxophone part and an acoustic guitar part. And they sounded brilliant, and they sounded completely different to what I was expecting, which made me really happy that I wasn't too prescriptive with my instructions when I put those parts up. So some of the really obvious stuff that you can probably hear there is there's this saxophone from Ian Smith, soprano sax, a little bit of delay on it and a bit of reverb. Love it. Nick Evans sent me some electric guitar. Which is really, really nice. It's acoustic guitar from Matt Wall. When I was mixing this one, I really wanted a slightly punchier kick. I got a sample of water dropping into the kitchen sink, turned it down a couple of octaves, and then I put a pitch envelope on it, so it goes very, very quickly from a high-ish pitch to a very low pitch. And that's it. With the rest of the percussion. So all of this is found sounds, train station, kitchen spray, all of that stuff. That's antibacterial spray, a symbol. Track 3, Lockdown. So this one starts with a crescendo of weird sound design, which I really like. I like this contrast of gnarly, odd, unplaceable sounding weird sounds and relatively really nice sounds of the piano. I made this sound from... Our bed frame is metal, and I whacked my wedding ring on it, and it made a really nice sound, so I did it again but recorded it and turned it into this. Train station ambience put through, this will be Cycles by Slate and Ash. It's brilliant. Reconstitute sound into tiny grains, and you can you can change the size of the grains, the amount of them, whether they're reversed or not, whether the pitch changes. Seagulls as well. There we go. More birds. Pad made out of our boiler. Something made out of a marxophone that somebody sent over. A few notes of that. I kept pretty much exactly to my initial idea for this, which was to do something with contrary motion, so when one voice goes up, the other voice goes down. Later on I introduced some chords which are a little bit spicy in places. There's a bit of dissonance in there which I quite like. It gives it a kind of fragility. But yeah, this one was fairly straightforward in the end. This thud that's coming up is me tapping the side of the cornet, but pitched down a lot, so it's a lot deeper. Hear that? Track 4, Isolation. Yeah, this didn't get off to a good start. I tried a few different approaches to this, and it just sounded stodgy and hollow, and I just deleted everything, and then wanted it to sound something like... So I recorded it, and I was really happy with it, so I just changed a couple of little things afterwards, voicings and stuff like that. I had a load of audio files from a previous project in there, one of which was some bird song, slowed down. Oh no, it wasn't slowed down, it was just as it was recorded outside our window, and I left it in by accident, but I really liked it, so we've kept that. I just like the feeling that adds to it. Track 5, Home. This one changed a fair bit too, because it sounded a bit too slow and ponderous. So I embraced that slowness and crunched up the piano and gave it a kind of retro tape sounding vibe. You can see where I've made these chops. Tom Warner's guitar, single notes that he played on an electric guitar, and I made an instrument out of them. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, towards the end, a single note on a plastic whistle and a single note on a violin that Dan Millage sent me, which I turn into these things. Matt Constantine, or Constantine, I'm not sure which of those. So Matt sent me some cello samples. Here's the longer notes. And they worked really nicely for these kind of pad things. Pizzicato stuff was great for bass. And I added some cornet as well. I've completely forgotten, but I put an effect on. I bet that's Sound Toys mixed in with a little bit of the same thing down the octave. Yeah, there it is. Same thing down the octave. Track 6, Distancing. I really like some of these guitar phrases. So I think here I just changed what the piano was doing and played the same phrase that Matt had played. Yeah. Yeah. I do have strings here actually. I've got Matt Constantine's cello again. This is our boiler in the kitchen. My dad sent me a load of guitar pinch harmonics on an acoustic, and I think I kept the pitch the same, but I just stretched the whole thing out and made this really, let's have a listen, made this really long sound using it. Yeah. Hear how that doesn't have a ding, it doesn't have a kind of sharp attack. And this is them all together. Okay, those clicks, those are these clicks. Recorded in Brighton train station and then chopped each individual click up and ended up with this. So each time I press the note you get a different one, it kind of cycles through them. And they were really useful for general momentum duties. And there's a rhythmic thing, Sophie rhythm. Yeah, my wife kind of shouted into the mic and I thought, how can I make this into anything I can use musically? And then I put it into Alchemy. We could probably see here. There you go. I've chopped it up. So it's just playing it on every beat or every quaver. That snare drum is the kidney beans. Again. These are all made just from seagulls, believe it or not. I love that swoopy one. Oh, bit of cornet on it. Yeah, so that was another occasion where somebody did something in one of the parts. This is Jez Stevenson's bass part, which is really nice and melodic, really high up. And he did a couple of these little things I really liked, and I doubled them sometimes in piano, but this time I did it on the cornet, I think. Yeah. Track 7, Early Reflections. This one is super ambient. It's just chords, basically. It's just these really dense cluster chords moving in and out of a Lydian feel with lots and lots of long notes, and using those harmonies and using different textures to create a bit of interest. Yeah, you can see by this point my track organisation was getting a little bit lax because none of these are from Sainsbury's. Let's hear that one. Oh, lovely. So that is, I'm going to trust the track title. That is a auto harp. A single note spread across the keyboard, but like chopped up into different tiny grains, all bubbling about. It sounds quite sandy. Tapping the metal frame of the bed. That's a lovely sound. The undulations you can hear is because I've set the sample to play and then reverse. So you kind of get these bubbling waves. This sound, which is my mother-in-law whistling, I turn that into a sort of synth sound. Added a little bit of cornet on this one as well. Track 8, Reclaimed Spaces. I wanted to explore tintinnabully, which is a technique made famous by Arvo Pärt. I did a lot of reading and absorbed at least a working knowledge of how he puts together some of his stuff. It was really interesting. So his stuff benefits hugely, I think, from having real voices and having strings, real strings. So it was quite a challenge to get something that would translate well enough to instruments that I've kind of hacked together from hitting my bed and stuff like that. But it was a really fun challenge to do. So we've got these pads made up of seagulls and auto harps and cellos and stuff, violin flotando. And my mum sent me some parts on a low whistle and recorder. There you go. And then more cello stuff. Recorded some cornet on this as well. And then everything. Wasn't too sure about this when I was mixing it, but the more I hear it, the more I like this one. Okay, let's move on. Track 9, Connections. This is another one that was really, really close to how the demo was actually. It didn't change too much. More of a classic systems piece with lots of short, staccato, interlocking rhythmic ideas and super simple harmonies. So I got sent some psaltery, I presume that's how you pronounce it, and some zitherines, what a brilliant name, from I think that was from the VI Control Music Forum. I put a shout out on there and I got some stuff. Joe Hogan sent me some bass. Thank you, Joe. Let's play a bit of that. Bass. Love it. Here's this psaltery. There you go. And then the zitherines. I think this is an amped version, yeah. More guitar from Matt Wall. You can tell by looking at this that almost everything else he sent me for the other tracks is just, I barely changed it, just shifted a couple of notes. But here, because this is such a kind of metronomic, chopped up piece, I've done a lot of chopping up. Sorry, Matt. Oh, this is another one. I haven't talked about this. This is another one from the VI Control Forum. Somebody said, I've just finished sampling my Spieler, I think, which is, I think, a German music box. It's just a music box. Yeah. Oh yeah, look, it's doing a bit more over here. Hear all of those short interlocking notes. There's an extra guitar part. Octavia Romano sent me this. Track 10, The Helpers. This, I didn't want this to be too cheesy, which is really difficult. When I'm trying to write a track that sort of encapsulates people being nice and doing nice things while the pandemic was happening. But I'm really happy with it. It's very similar to the demo. I didn't really change much. I uploaded some sheet music for a couple of bits of it, and my mum sent over recorder and low D whistle of the melody that I'd sent. And then with Matt's guitar. I started this one with a really pitched down sample of Clap for Carers, which was every Thursday. Streets all across the UK would clap in thanks to key workers and carers and everyone who kept the economy going and cared for people and did the jobs that needed to be done during the pandemic. And I used the same sample, just recorded from out of our window, completely untreated, not pitched down or anything, just as we heard it at the end of the track. Track 11, some good news. So the spine of this is the ringtone for a video calling app, and I thought, let's put a kick drum on it and some more stuff, and then some piano. Track 12, the last track, A World Changed. The title sounds a bit grand, but it's basically about how the pandemic has changed people's lives in sometimes tiny, almost barely noticeable ways, and other times in hugely irreversible, more profound ways. And I wanted to do something that was sort of respectful of that. So it's quite a somber track, it's quite minimalist. And it ends with these really dense cluster chords that have a lot of ambiguity. They're not necessarily happy or sad or anything, but there's a kind of optimism to it, I think. There's a reflective optimism is pretty much what I was going for with this. I was just messing around playing with this one, and I really like the way those chords sound with the, I think it's an F? Yeah, an F at the top of all of them. And these chords at the end are most of the instruments I have on the rest of the album. Loads of instruments stacked up and up and up. There's got the whistle and all the other pad sounds and the cornet, and then basses, and then my voice is in there as well, and everything together. And that's it. Back when I started, I had no idea how this was going to work out, even whether I was going to finish the project. And it's been amazing. It's been so much fun. It's been a creative journey, an emotional one. I really mean that. I had no idea whether anybody was going to send me anything. I didn't know if I'd get a single note. And I ended up getting 20 odd submissions, from phrases to full parts to individual notes. Some from friends, some from people I had never met before and have still never met. And I was really bowled over by the fact that people would do that for nothing, and they would spend their own time playing stuff and sending it over to be part of this project. And I think it kind of wonderfully encapsulates how people have found ways of coming together and found ways of doing things differently while the world has been on lockdown. So yeah, I'm incredibly proud and really happy with what I ended up with. So thank you for listening.